Lack of time. I'm in a group of folks trying to build subscription businesses related to renting out websites. Someone asked what their biggest problem was and it had 54 comments. I went through them all and was shocked to read most people said their biggest problem was lack of time. Here was my reply: I'm genuinely surprised so many people said time. Do you have paying clients?
Can you get them to pay for the builds? I have a full-time freelance developer.
I get clients to pay me to pay him to build their landing pages.
I'm effectively getting clients to pay for my developer to build our processes, technology, and IP. I don't have a self-serve platform yet.
I don't even sell our landing pages from a landing page. Are you sure you need all the things you think you need? There's a phrase I like that has a lot of truth in it: sales solve everything. Can you sell more websites or landing pages and use that revenue to pay others to do some of that stuff you shouldn't be doing, or don't have time for? It's often less about the resources you have and more about being resourceful.
I find most people have plenty of time. What they really lack is priorities.
Andy, I'd love to hear you and other forum members elaborate on this further. The impossibility of expanding time seems to me to be one of the biggest challenges that I face.
At the same time, I have an inkling that it's more about mindset than about a literal impossibility. So here's where I'm coming from, and I would love for someone to point out the flaws in my thinking. I'm working full-time, 40 to 60 hours a week.
I want to divorce my time from my money. But in order to get there, I need to take on a side hustle. And eventually, I want my side hustle to be good enough and reliable enough to make it my main hustle.
So expand my working hours. Get less sleep. Do whatever it takes. I'm hungry. And this is the scenario that I see before me as the inevitable path towards making this work. Let's say that I get client work for 10 hours a week, but it only brings in 25% of what I need to quit the main gig.
Then I raise my rates and I bring on 10 more hours a week, and now I'm bringing in a total of 60% of what I need to quit the main gig.
So I raise my rates again and I bring on 10 more hours a week, and I'm close to where I need to be to quit the full-time job. But not
I'm
quite.
also managing to hold it together because I don't function well on lack of sleep. Fear starts taking center stage. You're slipping. Your performance is suffering.
People are unhappy with your work, and you can't blame them. Because after all, you're not doing your best work.
But the counter-argument starts: you don't have a choice. Do or die. Make it happen. You got to do this.
Not sure how it'll work, but I'm going to go for it anyway. And all this is directly related to lack of time. Lack of energy.
Finite amounts of capacity. Maybe I'm not thinking creatively enough about this. But all of the ways I can think of to bring in some immediate monthly recurring revenue in the short term are still direct trade-offs between time and money.
They're not fast lane. They are me working extra hours but for clients who keep me on retainer, and therefore I am still not leveraging my time any more effectively.
At this point, I'm willing to put in time. Time is all I have. I don't have money yet to pay people so that I can delegate tasks to them so that I can expand my time. If grinding out the time in the short term is the cost I have to pay, I'll pay it.
And I'm hoping that down the road I'll be established enough to have additional ways at my disposal to leverage my time more effectively through creating a scalable business model. But maybe I'm not seeing something that's available to me now that is scalable.
Maybe I'm not thinking about this with the right kind of mindset or resourcefulness and creativity that someone else would approach this puzzle with. What would your thought process look like in tackling something like this? What are some of the questions that you'd ask yourself to identify opportunities? What are the entrepreneurial thinking patterns and mindset traits that people have in common when they're good at having enough time? I have a lot to learn in this area. Any insight would be devoured hungrily.
I still trying to decide what I wanna be when I grow up. Yes, my real estate investments are successful but time-consuming and frustrating.
Yes, my time is in very short supply. I started a business blog this last spring. I learned WordPress to build it. I'm still floundering around trying to find my audience.
I'm not sure it's worth my time to continue. Yes, I need landing pages, and I need to find a better direction. If I continue. Is that the business you're in, Andy?
We all have the same amount of time per day, per week, etc. But by definition. The difference is in how we use the time we have. Some people invest lots of time into family, church, volunteering, etc. Some people burn, waste, destroy, throw away lots of time binge watching the latest show, or reading the latest news, or watching sports, or playing the latest computer games, or whatever.
And while we may think they are wasting that time, that may be the one thing that gives them joy. Some people spend 40 plus hours or WK paying the bills and have no energy left over for anything else. But some people, however they do it, make better and more efficient use of the time they have. This is something I have yet to master.
I am a champion at wasting time.
I see people who accomplish 5x more than I do, and I just shake my head in wonder, admiration, and jealousy.
My mother says she has always felt the same way, so it may be partly hereditary. Add challenges. The challenge is to determine how much time you have available, after required sleep, eating, childcare, etc., and decide how efficiently you can use it.
Not everybody can accomplish the same amount with the same amount of time.
Improving your own efficiency is the challenge, just like a runner tries to improve his time. Some of us just plod along the track slower than others.
When people say I don't have the time, more times than not it's complete bullshit. They are bullshitting themselves. What they are really saying is I don't want to make the time.
A lot of people don't want to make a sacrifice temporarily either. If they need to go to get a tax return done, for example, but they have work, they might say something like, "But I have work, I haven't got the time to do it."
Complete bullshit. You can tell your boss you will come in later because of these reasons. I am sure he or she will
Verse 1,
approve.
David Gilmour, and verse 2, David Gilmour and.
There's no doubt that time is a valuable resource, but a lack of time is usually a lack of organization
It
and
helps
direction.
to have clear goals and clear steps to achieve them. Time becomes much more of a factor when you don't know what you're doing from day to day and you go blindly from one task to another. This year I've probably averaged around 30 hours a week, far less than most slow laners and sidewalkers, let alone your average entrepreneur, and have almost doubled my company's revenue
And
per
yes,
month.
I have employees to help, but I manage the same kind of growth without them too.
We all have the same amount of time in a day.
We can't speed it up or slow it down. When you say you didn't have time to do something, you're really saying it wasn't important enough to do and you did something more important instead. This is okay when I tell my wife I didn't have time to hang that shelf today.
And better than if I said it wasn't important enough for me to do today. However, don't kid and say you didn't have time to do something.
Admit that it wasn't important enough and that you chose to do something else instead. As a few of you've already mentioned, it's about prioritization, not trying to manage time. Blaze then told us of the 4 Ds that we should apply when a task lands on our desk.
The issue with time, I realized, is that the more you leverage your time and make the best use of it, the more you find that you need more time, because there's still a whole lot of stuff you need to do, but you've already used up 17 or 24 hours, and you need that remaining 7 hours to sleep and eat, etc.
Many people, friends or family or neighbors or business friends in my life told me that they don't have time. Some months back, I decided to survey my and their time. After analyzing everything for a whole 1 month, I found that I have at least 5 hours or day of free time.
Yes, for those whom I analyze and pointed out, they have at least 3 hours or day of free time. That's 3 by 7 equals 21. A lot can be done in 21 hours. And this is of the busiest person I know.
Some of them can squeeze 50 hours per week. He understood that it's not that we don't have time. It's that we don't prioritize things needs to be prioritized. I can use the time browsing FB or Insta or Snapchat to read or learn. I can use the time watching Netflix or TV, playing games for earning more bucks, work on
I can
business.
use the time gossiping on useless stuffs on table to help someone and improve my life. Is helping someone improve our lives
It's
for
something
better.
like Karma can use the dead time while traveling in train or bus to have meeting or call with clients. Heck, I can use the time sitting in toilet. And all this can be done via kinetic execution. K is not just for business or entrepreneurship.
We can use the same model with little tweaks in our day-to-day life to make our life better and make others' life better. 3 A's can be used. Whatever is important, our current situation or life. What needs to be to change. Hear the echoes of our heart to learn and change. I am very bad with word flows. Wanted to write in easy and explainable manner, but sorry for my bad English and flows. When I was working for somebody else as an employee, I thought that I don't have time at all, and now as I started my journey as an entrepreneur, I feel I have all the time in the world because I just started my entrepreneurial journey, hence don't have a long list of clients. One thing I realized recently, that time is the most important commodity in the world, and it's not about the time but the value that we produce within the time we have. So now I try to make the most of hours I have for work in terms of value creation. This could turn into a bit of a Blaise Brosnan thread. He's an older gentleman and it's such a pleasure to be at one of his workshops listening to him talk. Some of the best lines come from him when someone asks him a question. Anyway, on the subject of one dump it, the market doesn't pay for activity. Blaise Brosnan, you can't invoice for input. Blaise Brosnan, do you really need to? Are you just consuming? Are you being busy? Can you invoice for it?
On the topic of learning, how many of us are reading books just to read books? We've been told that the most successful people are always reading.
So we read, and there is an endless supply of books promoted in forums and on podcasts. But are the books we are reading relevant to an immediate problem that we need to solve in our business?
Excellent post.
If what we already know can be utilized 100%, we don't even need to read another book.
Thank you for the awesome picture. Looks
Images
lovely.
of Book of MJ.
No. But reading books just to read books instead of watching TV, scroll Facebook feeds or playing computer games, I believe pays great dividends over time.
And it's an investment into one's business sooner or later indirectly. But the difference is that reading those books that don't immediately solves your business problems is not something you do during focused business work hours. I see it more like a background activity.
Perhaps a bit like lifting weights. Meditate and eat healthy, that indirectly benefits your business.
Yep. I just happen to have black and white version.
Remember,
only.
both the beggar and billionaire have 24 hours in a day sent from my SMG 960U using Tapertol.
Using other people's time is how you have more time. If you delegate tasks, you have more time.
Exactly. If you dump it, delegate it, or defer it, then you have more time to do the thing you should be doing.
I have a few brothers, always love delegating them tasks as older than them. Especially when they are lazily watching television, but said the downside in delegating is skill outsourcing. You reduce the amount of skill points you garner in that area. Editing
Greater than outsource, greater than no skill points.
Yes, I think this is normal. I like this phrase. The first thing you could look at is raising your effective hourly rate and not work any more hours. Say you're on Upwork charging $40
Say
or hour.
you can only bill for half the hours you're working because the rest of the time you're prospecting and doing admin. Your effective hourly rate is $20 or hour.
You're earning $200 for every 10 hours worked. You could ask yourself, how do I make $400 for every 10 hours worked? How do I raise my effective hourly rate to $40 or hour? You could raise your Upwork hourly rate.
How would you do that? You'd probably niche down and be the gal who writes crypto copy, the gal who writes about pages, or the gal who set up constant contact email sequences, rather than the gal who writes copy.
Listen to these two: set your hours and don't think of them as an unlimited resource. Your time and your health are precious. Time is not all you
You
have.
have skills and experience and the ability to add value. Maybe because you believe the above, then you're not seeing the value you can bring to the table, and maybe you're not charging enough. I'm pretty sure I posted these somewhere this week, maybe earlier in this thread. Even we get paid by what we produce.
We pay for what we consume in time or money. Careful of consuming too much.
It's a bit of a brain dump, and I didn't answer everything. I'll come back when I have the time and see if I can add anything.
Here's a couple more lines I try to keep front and center. How can you get more repeat business? How can you get more referrals? How can you get paid for work you've already done?
Don't have enough time is the purest form of abdication of responsibility there is.
The reason they all say that is because they're all losers.
All of them, and all of Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, all had so blaming something that you can't change and that has never stopped anyone else succeeding is basically saying I'm a loser in a different way. I knew someone who always said this dumb crap every day.
The truth is though that they make it that they don't have time for the things that matter. They'll spend 3 hours playing games or doing some hobby that doesn't matter, and then they'll expand that hobby until it absorbs all their free time.
And then when it comes to doing something important, they'll roll out that there's just no timeline. The best response to there's not enough time in the day is FCK or loser.
Disagree. You don't know what you don't know. Books are a great way to learn things we would have never otherwise learned. Reading should not take precedence over taking
Lack
action.
of time. So why not make more time in a day? Someone might be able to make $1 or $2 by making a time-stretching clock.
Have the minute hand work normal so it actually keeps perfect time, but make the face of the clock have an extra 5 minutes, and then just before the hand gets to the 12, have it go ahead and bypass the extra time you add to the clock. That's an extra 2 hours per day.
In physics, time is a constant. It's like a never-ending line. You cannot add extra time or take away time. It only goes forwards. Even if you change
still
your
have
clock.
24 hours in a day. You can bring time closer to you using a wormhole or warp speed as seen in Star Trek. The movie Interstellar is a perfect example of time dilation.
A time-stretching clock just moves the hand. You're still restricted to 24 hours in a day. By moving the hand, you're probably sacrificing time to do something else.
Best thing to do is wake up early and go to sleep late. Think of time as you have 1,000 in the bank and that's it. That's all you can use. Sent from my SMG 960U using Taper
Hang in
Talk.
there. That's a rough spot to be in, but keep going. I can't say I have all of the challenges you're facing, so take what I say with a grain of salt and your own analysis, but I like to think I'm good at time. This is long, but I think it's worth it. Bear with me here. There's an old poster from Big Union days that goes something like: 8 hours for work, 8 hours for play, 8 hours for rest. Now, it can be viewed as scripted hogwash, and to a degree that's true. But let's think about that for a moment, and specifically how it can be leveraged. 8 hours for work. If you're working a full-time job, there is no easy way around this yet. Call it 9 after commuting. 8 hours for rest. Very dependent on who you are. I'd say I've only met a handful of people in my life who can legitimately function at a high level for a long time on 5 or fewer hours of sleep. But 6, 6.5, or 7 hours of actual sleep can happen. Let's call it 8 hours when you count falling asleep and the waking up or making coffee process. You're down to 7 hours to squeeze everything else. What else needs to be squeezed in here? Seems a little daunting to stuff all of that into your last 7 hours, because in fact, it's almost unreasonable to think that you can. What can you do? Here are some things I've found to be useful. Also, working a 40 to 60 hour week up to 70 plus after you factor commuting.
Do I do it perfectly every time? No. But I'm sure as hell trying. That was long. I hope at least one thing in there you find useful.
The only other thing I'd say is ease into the changes. You can try cold turkey, but that many habit changes are hard to track. Good luck, sir.
Touch it. Once you take a sip of your morning coffee and open the most important looking of the stack of letters on your desk. This is the stack you think need action.
The stacked reader in a different pile.
We'll go through this step later because it's super important to filter so you're not consuming when you're supposed to be producing. You pull the letter out of the envelope and scan the page quickly.
Do you want to touch that piece of paper as few times as possible? Ideally once. Does it really need to be done?
I still think this is the most important question. If it escapes the bin, then is it super short to action?
Like shorter than the act of delegating it or adding it to your calendar for a later date? If it's super short to do, then consider doing it there and then. If you're going to delegate it, consider delegating it there and then. Ideally delegate it with enough info that it doesn't come back to you for you to touch again. If you're going to defer it, put it into your calendar there and then, with all the info you need for when you'll properly study it. I'll often just link to wherever the info is.
Put it out of your mind until it pops up in your calendar.
This helps to not feel overwhelmed too. Don't put it onto a growing stack of letters that you'll pick up every morning to figure out if you need to dump it, delegate it, defer it, or do it. You don't want to touch that piece of paper every single day till you end up actioning it. It won't apply to every piece of paper that comes across your desk, but it's helpful to try and touch it once.
2 things that might help you. Keep it up. And focus on systems.
Wow. This thread is exactly what I needed. I found myself saying I don't have time this morning and then realized how much time I've wasted in the past couple of days. I'm close to taking action on my first venture, but I'm still terrified of failing. I'm standing on the high dive at the pool, and I know I've got to jump to make progress, but damn it, it's high.
What does failing even mean? You try something. It doesn't work. You try a different way. Repeat till it works. Failure shows us the way by showing us what's not the way.
Just go for it. Just go for something, anything you can do right now as long as it moves the needle. Do whatever little thing you can do right now.
There's this concept of an internal flywheel. Accomplish a small thing. It'll give you some spiritual momentum for the next thing. And so on. You're in the right place.
The people on this forum reward and admire action. Everyone knows it seems scary, daunting, and difficult. That's why everyone is also stoked when someone takes
This
a leap.
also applies to emails, I think, too.
Install a time tracker on your computer. I'm using Rescue Time. It will show you the truth, and make sure you tag this forum as entertainment. Being here can be very valuable, but most of the time we're just hanging out. Read checklist manifesto high priority. You don't need to earn the same amount of more than your job on your side biz to quit your job. That's silly.
You need enough to pay your bills. If your bills are as high as your current income, I'm sorry to tell you, but you fucked up. Fix that. There's this author and researcher I like, Ilze Yudkowsky. He says 99% of personal problems can be fixed with 5 minutes of thinking. Most people can't even do that. Think for 5 minutes, focus on it, grab a piece of paper and a pen and think. The solution is there, you can come up with it. P.S. You might not like the answers you get. Solutions have no obligation of being convenient or easy. Deal with it. Stop looking for other people for answers. You don't need a guru, or mentor, or guide. Those are nice and can save you time, but you don't need them. One delays starting. The other delays finishing. Both are normally caused by a fear of engaging the market. Use the urge to procrastinate or perfectionate. I just made up a word to get things done. The reptile part of your brain fears change. It's smarter than you and knows what you're about to do will result in change. It therefore throws up the urge to procrastinate or perfectionate. Use that as a signal that what you were about to do is important. Your reptile brain told you so.
Taking a risk and suffering losses when it doesn't go your way. Contrary to the fail-forward narrative of the start your own business space, it is possible for attempting a business play and failing to result in negative and irreversible life-changing effects.
This should always be factored in. Don't risk what you can't afford to lose.
Thanks. Great post. Time is relative. You can't control it. We all get 24 hours or 7 days whether you like it or not. You can control your actions, your priorities and your focus based on X number of variables: obligations, energy levels, need to eat, sleep, ambitions, goals, dreams, needs, pains, wishes, family, friends, etc. As Tamara from Come quotes some guru, have serenity with things you can't control, the courage to take action on things you can, and the wisdom to know them apart.
Ah yes. The Serenity Prayer. I don't know who wrote it, but it's a good one.
Use the Chet Holmes 1 hour method. Schedule 1 hour each week to work on your most important task or business or etc. Do not let anything deter you or shift your focus from that one item.
Once you see the effectiveness of just moving the damn ball, you will begin to put in 3 or 4 of these hours a week. Then
Make your first hour setting a schedule for my other hours and to study the method. Then make your second hour what the hell should I do for these hours and set some priorities. Schedule it now.
It always amazes me that people are willing to work their hardest to hit a deadline imposed by their boss, however fail to impose or enforce deadlines on themselves.
It's much easier to BS ourselves than a boss. And negotiating with ourselves against ourselves can make things more comfortable, at least for the present
You're right
moment.
about the impossibility of
A
expanding
lot of
time.
people will say use time more efficiently and drop unimportant things and such. Those are not faulty advice, but once your time is already optimized for productivity, the advice becomes useless.
You can only so much in a period of time. And you can't make time, only reallocate it. So if you cannot change time, what can you change?
You can change what you in that time. For most people freelancing, and I have been there, you have a bias toward maximizing the amount of money you can. I want you to try, instead of using a block of time to charge money, use a block of time
Capital is freedom from labor. It is the gift given to every person in a modern society with strong property rights, if they choose to accept it.
Or, bring it about. I'll elaborate on capital below. So do less, your time, greater than invoice for rental of your time, and do more, your time, greater than your capital, greater than rental or sale of your capital. Create capital, and trade the use of that capital for money.
But I only made one capital thing. No problem. Because your time is not tied to the one you are renting out or selling instances of.
You can make more. Without some kind of capital creation process in your repertoire. That you are treating your own life, body and time as your only asset, your only capital, so to speak. You need to externalize assets.
Use the ones you have already in you, and turn them into things outside yourself. 1. You are a freelance writer specializing in sales letters, web copy, postcards, and brochures.
This was me, for a while. Each week, you trade a certain number of hours for money, writing these letters and things.
Perhaps you bill per item, charging $1,000 for a sales letter. But each letter takes you an amount of time. Your first step, which you may have naturally started doing, is to optimize your time doing this activity.
You create templates for your letters, brochures, etc., so that you can make new ones more quickly. This is actually a capital asset. You are using a tool in the physical world to leverage your labor.
To increase its effect with no increase in exertion on your part. You might also make some stock paragraphs that you one-off and reuse, some questionnaires that you have your clients fill out to save time and increase the likelihood
These
of a
also
sale.
become your capital. From here, you have a few directions. If you want to delegate to other people, you can make your letter writing process simpler and more foolproof. You make a checklist to ensure that all attributes of each new letter are taken care of. Is there a nut graph about the product? Is there an engaging title? Does the first line meet the criteria for your first line of a letter scoring system and really pop? Or, if you are not keen on the idea of hiring people to implement your system, you can sell copies of the system to DIY customers.
In fact, some of those DIY customers will still want to hire you to write the letters, because after seeing your system they understand the depth of your expertise. As a side benefit, they are now willing to pay you more. Starting as a freelance copywriter, you can end up as a publisher of copywriting templates, checklists and guidelines.
In a fairly short period of time, you create this small asset which makes you money that is decoupled from your continued labor. 2. You are a teacher. On the side you tutor some students and help them with test prep. Perhaps your state has an asinine math test that pulls tears from children the way a Mississippi dentist pulls teeth. Sorry Mississippi dentists, I had to. Why are you tutoring? Well, your dream of teaching crashed into the reality that school administrators and parents don't care as much about education as you.
They do care about passing tests though, and you can use that to raise money, which you think you will use to eventually start a business. What you don't realize is that your brain is performing translations every time you hear certain phrases. Those translations are keeping you working for money, using your time and limited lifespan.
When you hear you need capital to start a business, you automatically translate capital to money. But actually, money is only one form of capital. It is a for that. If you can make goods that serve a particular human need, do you need money to start a business?
No, because you can, with some level of effort, create capital that is more valuable than any amount of money you could save while tutoring students. So you create the certificate or whatever the name of your state steer jerker exam is, quick sheet and flashcards.
Perhaps you make an online version, or a print version, or an online class, or D all of the above. You DM and ask for a printer recommendation, or technology advice, or whatever. Now, instead of tutoring for $40 per hour, you have tools that do the work for you.
And your students can learn from you without taking up your time.
We all win. 3. You're a carpenter taking side jobs as a handyman.
Handy
woman.
Anyway, clearly you are trading time and effort for money. You have some obvious capital, which magnifies the effect of your labor. A hammer, a cordless driver, a painter's knife, brushes, screwdrivers, chisels, bits, buckets. But those are the commodity type capital.
They are the tools of the trade. You need some capital to free yourself from carpentry and handy lady work.
What to do? You notice a hard thing. Paintbrushes are hard to clean.
It is hard and unsafe to hang drywall above X feet. You've noticed that you use this one trick to accomplish the task, which makes it
Perhaps
easier.
If there were a tool, a product, a system, a process, that is your task. Not taking on more handy lady work, but working on that tool, product, system, process.
Create, test, repeat. Use your handy lady job as the testing ground for your product. Nothing more, because the hourly pay will never free you from hourly pay. I hope that gives you something to work with, even if just a bit. I know I tend to go long when I write here, so thanks for sticking with me to the end. Read anything written by Carl Menger. Your life, and probably the entire world, will improve immediately. Most people overcomplicate time management. It doesn't have to be a science experiment. As MJ preached, act, assess, adjust. If you follow this pattern rigorously, Your need to be strategic with time is taken care of automatically. Identify the problem in front of you, smash it, move on to the next one. If you don't know what problem is in front of you, that is your problem.